Alright, I don't feel like hooking up all my camera shit, even though I was all excited the other day to be playing with my camera and make a video. I don't. I got a new cam link and I'll have to do a bunch of stuff. And this video doesn't really require 4K video exactly. But this video is in regards to the DIY illegal reptile surgery stuff that was posted just a couple days ago on YouTube. They didn't specifically say any names, but I mean it's pretty obvious who they're talking about. They have a thumbnail pic on their video of Nerd and them removing. It's the video of them working on a viper and pulling a parasite out of it. And I guess it's behind the scenes. People have been trying to get Kevin to quit doing those kinds of videos. And I've noticed over the last few years that a lot of the reptile related stuff on YouTube is essentially just clickbait anymore. It's just whatever's big or mean or biting or can kill you or venomous. Or, I mean, if you look at what Prehistoric's putting out, I mean, it's just straight garbage. It's not for any legitimate reptile keeper. They are marketing their YouTube stuff towards jerk-offs, basically, that don't know anything or want anything to really do with taking care of these animals or working with these animals. And Barchek has been doing that for a while. Years and years ago in Barchek, they would have their videos of them like letting snakes bite them. It was kind of a joke, but we're kind of past that now. Now that we have the Lasiac stuff and they're actually banning animals and they're really coming after us heavily. There's a certain level of behavior that's not acceptable anymore. And I really think that Nerd has taken this so much further than just stupid, entertaining, bad behavior. They've taken it into a criminal realm of animal cruelty and just illegal behavior. And that's what that DIY illegal reptile surgery video was about. It was trying to get Nerd to quit doing that. And they said right in the beginning of the video, if you're only seeing this video if we couldn't resolve this issue behind closed doors. So obviously they reached out to Nerd, and Nerd, probably Kevin, I'm sure, explained that he is the evil morph god and he can do no wrong. So I'm hoping that this will persuade Nerd to maybe at least take down the videos or rethink what they're doing, because the video I'm mostly going to focus on is the boa video. And I don't really pay attention to Nerd stuff, or Jay's or Barchek's or that Nolan dude, Tyler. I think his name's Tyler Nolan, that just free handles Venomous for clicks on YouTube. I just don't think it's a good idea. I personally don't want to give them views, so I don't really look at it. So, but I've known about a lot of stuff Nerd was doing for a while, and Jay. I mean, he's all over, YouTube. And the sad thing is now when you type in reptiles on YouTube, it's just clickbait. It's just a snake striking at somebody, or a venomous snake, or something stupid, or Nerd operating on an animal. And it's not even educational anymore. It's just like it's like a bad reality TV show about people doing stuff with reptiles that they really shouldn't be doing. So the issue, though, with the main video that I think is most incriminating for Nerd is the boa video, because of the laws that are blatantly broken. And if I can downsize this, I'm not good at computer stuff. I have a lot of expensive cameras and stuff, but one of these days I'll learn how to use everything. Okay, here is the New Hampshire license and exemptions for performing operations or veterinarian type medical procedures. And this is the law that they're clearly in violation of, because the exemption doesn't apply to them specifically in this case of the boa that was transported from Pennsylvania across multiple state lines to NERD to have them perform a medical procedure on. And that is, where is it? Number 5, the owner of an animal or the owner's regular employee caring for and treating the animal belonging to such owner, except where the ownership of the animal was transferred for purpose of circumventing this chapter. That is the specific area in which they're in violation. And there are also some issues with animal cruelty laws, because when you're dealing with any kind of medical procedure that's clearly going to inflict pain on a living animal, and you're not supplying any kind of anesthetic to alleviate that pain or avoid the distress that comes with severe pain of having an operation done to you, this potentially falls, well, it doesn't potentially fall, it 100% falls into the realm of animal cruelty. So on the state level, the thing that I found that it probably would fall under is a Class B felony, and that would be, let's see if I can find this, that would be in the cruelty to animals section of New Hampshire Code 6448, and that would be negligence, beats, cruelly whips, tortures, mutilates, or in any other manner mistreats and causes to be mistreated any animal. Now, that doesn't, at first glance, that doesn't really sound like it would fall under that, but you would have to look up the legal definition of mutilates. And if mutilate is to disfigure, disform, cut into, lacerate, any of those kinds of things, then NERD's other videos, specifically like a viper or the ball python that he cuts into and removes some infections from, with how I didn't see anything in the video where the snake was given any kind of anything to manage pain, lidocaine, none of that. I just didn't see any of it. If it's in there, I didn't see it in the video. And in the other videos where he's trying to remove the fluid from the inside of eggs or snakes that are egg bound, I'm not seeing any kind of pain management. On a human being, that would be the equivalent of sticking a syringe into a woman's uterus and sucking out fluid. I can't imagine, or I don't think anybody wants large syringes shoved into their body cavities and having fluid sucked out. I'm sure they don't want to have their face sliced open. I'm sure they don't want to have you don't want to have your side sliced open to have things removed. These are just blatant, undeniable instances of cruelty to animals because the lack of anesthetic being used. I highly recommend that you watch the video on the video of the DIY illegal surgeries and hear the veterinarians speak about this. It's very informative, and it actually made me rethink a lot of things. It made me rethink even something like a minor impaction. The other issue is with the video is NERD using on a thumbnail picture about how much money they saved on the BOA video by having somebody go across state lines to have them perform any kind of veterinary medicine on this snake, which according to New Hampshire law is illegal for them to do. And that's where the potential for a Lacey Act felony comes into this. If an illegal action is taken or done with an animal within a state, and then that animal is taken out of that state and crossed the state line, you can, in a lot of cases, in most cases, be held to a Lacey Act felony violation for crossing state lines. even something as even if somebody was to steal your animal and take it to another state where they owed you money and they never paid you, so you go to another state to repossess that animal. If you don't go through the proper channels of authority to gain possession of that animal, and you just say you go into somebody's private property and take the animal back and then go across the state line, you are in violation of Lacey Act, and it's a felony. And we saw this a while back when somebody on Retic Nation bragged about doing that very thing, and then I made fun of them, pointed out that they'd committed a Lacey Act violation, and were bragging about it all over social media. So this is kind of a gray area, and I don't know how that would play out. But to intentionally go across state lines with an animal, to have an illegal medical procedure done on that animal by somebody who's not licensed in that state, and then take the animal back across state lines, is potentially a Lacey Act violation and a felony. And it's sad that somebody who's seen as such a help to the reptile industry um, wouldn't take the time to think about these things before putting videos on the internet for the entire planet to see, and essentially advertising to the world that we're willing to break a law so we can monetize this video on the internet. Because what are we actually learning from these videos that Nerd's putting out? It's nothing good. We're not learning. Even their Retic feeding video, they had to turn off the comments because they got so many negative comments of how they were handling feeding Retics in a very irresponsible manner. So it nerd YouTube is essentially just clickbait. But in the cases of these medical veterinary procedures they're carrying out, a lot of them are actually illegal, and a lot of them are going to fall within the realm of animal cruelty, which will be used against the entire industry when the animal rights activists inevitably get a hold of these videos. They're there for anybody to see. And the important thing you need to understand is the animal rights industry, the animal rights people, they already view us having these animals as an act of animal cruelty. So, and that's an important thing to take into consideration. According to animal rights people, their baseline for us is we're already committing animal cruelty just by owning the animals. So when Nerd is putting out videos of them slicing into reptiles with no anesthetic, pulling stuff out of them, not even stitching up the wounds they're creating, sticking them back in cages, jamming large syringes through the scales, the skin, the stomach into the egg chamber to suck out fluid, which is very dangerous. And even if you sterilize the needle, you're still running the risk of introducing a massive amount of bacteria into the egg chamber, and you're also running the risk of that fluid inside the egg getting into the egg chamber and just decaying and rotting. And we all know what bad eggs smell like. I don't think we would want a bad egg rotting inside of us, and that is essentially what Nerd is doing to these animals by that procedure. Now, should you you can't really put this into a monetary perspective of whether or not they're justified in doing it, because from a moral and ethical perspective the answer is always no, they're not. It's Nerd, they can afford to go to the vet. And the other thing I've noticed in these videos is they're kind of a blatant disregard for vets concerning reptiles. And we all know your average vet doesn't know anything about reptiles. And I'm not saying I've never done something veterinarian like with my snakes. Most of my snakes are wild caught retics or F1s. No vet wants to see my animal. The difference is if I have to do something, I'm not putting it on a video and then putting it on YouTube to try to monetize it, that is insanely irresponsible and dumb. So what we can do now is we can go through some of the clips from the video about the illegal aspect of it, and you can hear what the veterinarian has to say about some of these things.
So this video is only going to come out if this can't be resolved behind closed doors. We need you to delete this and stop doing this and scrub the record clean, because this does not end well for us.
Practicing veterinarian of Dr. Adrian Walton. I'm a practicing veterinarian of 22 years in the Vancouver, British Columbia area. I am also a keeper of reptiles and have been since 1975. And I have a range of animals from turtles, tortoises, frogs, snakes, and even a Gila monster. Some of my other qualifications is that I am a member of the Canadian Council for Animal Care Committee here in Canada to determine standards of care for reptiles, and I'm also teach a course in animal cruelty investigations, which I use to teach conservation officers, the BCSPCA, and animal welfare groups across Canada.
Should be doing, but actually these people that say that they're the only people that can do it with their experience, who's been breeding for X amount of years, and they see this person as this idol who obviously they value a lot, and they see as an experienced person. And when you see someone do these types of things and say, oh, only an experienced person can do this, then people are led into believing that this is actually what they should be doing. But actually these people that say that they're the only people that can do it with their experience are actually have no experience doing this whatsoever and shouldn't even be going near this.
You're right. Everybody thinks they're an expert. So it's anybody who thinks that medical treatments on a snake is something that you can get off of a YouTube video that's done in the manner of this is how you fix your plumbing, is going to be problematic. Because I know the textbook this individual has read from, and they picked and chose certain parts but ignored other parts, because certain parts they feel they have an understanding of, and the parts that they don't understand they're kind of ignoring. So it's problematic, to say the least.
A boa that was this individual's friend's boa, and it had a mask growing in its mouth. Now, to me, in this video, the person in question said that this animal came from 2 states away. This is me saying 2 states away. They actually named it, but I'm trying to not say where it's from. But yeah, so that has gone past exotic veterinarians to get there. And in this state they were in originally, there was at least 9 exotic vets, just by looking at vet directories. So that they've bypassed actual exotic veterinarians to go do this surgery for a video. And there's a number of things in question within the practice within this video.
So let's bring up the elephant in the room. This is practicing veterinary medicine without a license. Now, there are things that you can do on your own animals that is legal, but it's a fine line between legal and animal cruelty. And unfortunately, the videos that I've seen, this is closer to the side of animal cruelty. The second is that you are not allowed to work on other people's animals, and they'll still sometimes give you a little bit of leeway, except for 2 small problems. This isn't just a friend who lives next door. This is somebody from several states away. Second, you are getting financial recompense because the video has got views on a YouTube channel, so you are being paid to do this procedure, just not directly by the individual. So this is already an illegal procedure, and I'm quite sure that some of the veterinarians in that state may be reporting that individual, and they're going to be in a little bit of trouble on that one. The second problem is that we have in this country, and North America in general, a lot of people against the reptile hobby. They are looking for ways to demonize the hobby. And the fact that people are doing these procedures to avoid veterinarians, and there are lots of veterinarians in that area that are capable of doing these procedures, it basically makes the entire hobby look like just another version of Tiger King. This individual had views on that surgical video, which YouTube therefore paid him for those views. Why isn't he putting that money into the next animal that he videotapes? Because again, he's not saying that he doesn't have the money to do the procedures. He's saying he doesn't think it's worth going to a veterinarian. It's better that he does it. And that attitude of like, you can do a repair at home just like your plumbing. If you want to fix a toilet, go ahead. That is where the problem lies. Because everybody that he's sending a video out to, anybody who's been keeping reptiles for more than 5 years, are in their head going to think that they are an expert and that they are qualified to do the things that he's doing. He's not qualified to do the things that he's doing. Yet, let alone the number of copycats that he set forth onto the reptile community. Because you know that everybody out there thinks that now, because it was so simplified and so, matter of fact, everybody who watched that think, I could do that. And because he doesn't understand the pain involved or the physiology of stress and shock, because he doesn't understand even the appropriate use of antibiotics, people are going to think that they can do it.
At the end of that one where they're operating on those viper, at the end he shows like literally the things like didn't close it up. Basically, it's got gaping wounds on the side and lacerations where it's sliced up, and then he goes, right, it's going back in the enclosure. So would that have been closed up as a vet?
No, you would have sutured it as a bare minimum. And you actually have to know proper suture technique on this because of the fact that if you do it this way, it'll never heal. If you do it this way, it will never heal. You have to sew it in a pattern like this, where you fold the thing up, and that's how you seal it. So no, that was just an open wound. So I should also point out his aseptic technique was very, very wrong. So the drug that he was using is a drug called gentamicin. And it is a absolutely wonderful drug for the type of bacteria that we be seeing. The problem is, it also is severely nephrotoxic. It damages kidney tissues like no other drug out there. And I'll use kind of this as an analogy. When you sent me this video, and I watched it, and picked my jaw off the ground, I went to my associate, who also does a lot of exotics, and I asked her, can you guess what antibiotic they used? And I gave the following. It's a gram-negative antibiotic, and it's old school, and we don't use it anymore. And she went through several of them, and she didn't get it right. And then when I said gentamicin, her jaw dropped to the ground as well, because no veterinarian is going to use that drug as a first-line drug, because it will fry the kidneys.
Miracle worker. And I understand why people enjoy it, because if you don't think about things on that critical level, you can just think, they're saving these animals and it's wonderful. And I can see why people do give them the views, because it appears to be like doing a good thing. But I think going forward, with every next episode or video that's uploaded, it's just the next opportunity for animal rights to just absolute bulldoze us with it. I mean, if I go to US ARC here, you have to excuse me while I read here. If I go to the US ARC's Keepers Codes of Ethics, they literally state that US ARC considers access to quality medical care and veterinary care to be required for responsible ownership. Now, what does that say about the US hobby when one of the largest players is completely just obliterating that?
The animals that they're banning are usually not the ones that are a problem. The people in the hobby that are keeping Unique species are not the problem. It's the people that go out and buy a bearded dragon from a large company that shall remain nameless, take it home for their kids so they have a pet Tyrannosaurus Rex in their kid's bedroom. And then when the kid gets bored of it 6 months later, it sits there and slowly starves to death in the corner of the room. And the problem for me is they account for probably 90% of the reptile owners in Canada. And these large corporations shouldn't be selling it. But the smaller ones, the ones that you see at the reptile shows, these are the people that are truly passionate about these animals. They're the ones that are leading the charge on animal welfare. So when you have one of the biggest players in the United States showing you that, we're just one step above large corporations on animal welfare, it really makes it hard. I rambled there and I apologize, but my point I'm trying to make is that here in Canada, one of the biggest problems we're having is that the politicians, the lawyers are all against the hobby. The one group we should be able to count on is veterinarians. And we're losing them because so few people bring their reptiles to veterinarians. If we don't get somebody other than the reptile hobby, which I'm sorry, we're only a small percentage of reptile keepers, the people that will eventually have a say in government are going to be big box stores because they have the lawyers to be able to say, no, we must protect the bearded dragons and geckos. We're not going to protect, say, some unique Sumatran lizard because it's not in the best interest of those companies to protect them. They're not their customers. They're looking to protect for mom and dad to be having a pet dinosaur in their basement.
Yeah. This video isn't to just drag the person. If you know who it is, you know who it is. But the idea is just want the best possible scenario is that these videos are pulled by the person and they don't make them again. This isn't about destroy the individual. It's just nip this in the bud because you're going to damage everyone. That's all it is.
That was kind of a brief summary of the video. One thing he said, the veterinarian said at the end of this, or towards the end of it, which was insanely important, and I talked about this with the anti-reptile legislation in Ohio back in 2012 or whenever that hit, where he said that, as governments try to make more and more stuff illegal, the only people that end up going to having a say are going to be the large corporations with the money. And we saw something very similar to that in Ohio after the Zanesville, all the animals got released, whatever, and PJAC and USARK had went into Ohio, and reptiles weren't originally even going to be on the list of things they were going to regulate after all those big cats were released. But both PJAC or PIJAC or however you say it and USARK both wanted to push for their own standards and stuff, and they wanted a piece of that pie because there was going to be a ton of money that was going to be getting donated to any organization that was there to fight, whether it was on the pro-pet side or the animal rights side. So there was a lot of money to be made for anybody who showed up to Ohio for all that stuff. And they threw venomous large constrictors and crocodilians and all that stuff right under the bus. PJAC got money from NARBC. Brian Potter and them gave $30,000 to PJAC. They went into Ohio, they got hooked up with John Mack of Reptiles by Mack, and you probably have seen some of their PETA videos where animal rights people went into Reptile by Mack's building and they found these horrible conditions, these animals stuck to glue traps, all kinds of stuff. And so the voice for the reptile industry ended up being a supplier of big box corporate pet stores. So all the little stuff was all fine. All the stuff that ends up at SPCA's, ends up dying, ends up in people's possessions that shouldn't have them, are throwaway pets. And that's exactly what that veterinarian just said was going to happen in Canada. We saw that happen in Ohio. And the best part about all of that is that was paid for by the reptile industry. NARBC gave PJAC $30,000 to hire the lobbyists that got hooked up with Reptiles by Mac to push the big box agenda and screwed over large constrictor keepers, venomous keepers, crocodilian keepers, monitor keepers, all those people. They all got hit with these ridiculous restrictions that made it very difficult to legally own any of those animals. And all the bearded dragons and little lizards and all that stuff that gets thrown around like it's worthless trash in corporate pet stores were all protected. So we've already seen that here. And it was funny when the ruling came out for Ohio, both PJAC and HSUS both claimed a victory. They said, look what we did. Look at how PJAC was like, look at what we did for the reptile industry. Meanwhile, it just threw under the bus all of us that have been doing this forever and keeping the big scary reptiles. And HSUS was like, look how much damage we just did to the reptile industry. The same ruling, two opposing sides claimed a victory, and it was paid for in part by the reptile industry, to give you an idea of how uninformed, incompetent, and self-destructive we are. So that was some of those videos. We're going to jump into some of the actual stuff that Nerd's posting, and you guys can take a look at that.
He's getting some size. Oh, look at that.
Just bit
He's animating. All right, to make him let go, we have to support his body. So he's going to keep doing this because he feels like he's under attack. So walk towards me. We're going to get his body onto the table. He's getting some size. Oh, look at that.
Just bit
He's animating. All right, to make him let go, we have to support his body. So he's going to keep doing this because he feels like he's under attack. So walk towards me. We're going to get his body onto the table.
Okay, so right away, it's supposed to be a video about him tying off a tumor or something in a snake's mouth, and they have a king cobra attacking a camera mic. What educational value is there to hold up a king cobra above your head so it can try to kill a camera microphone? This is why this shit is clickbait. This is why it's for people that really don't give a shit about these animals and aren't going to be affected when they're all made illegal because they don't own any of them.
All right, guys, so we're going to show a video dealing with a leucistic boa constrictor. That's Constrictor imperator. It's my friend's animal, but he had some problems with it, and he felt like it was going to die, and it certainly was. So I ended up meeting with him, getting the animal, because he lives far away in Pennsylvania. I got the animal.
Right off the bat, admits to breaking the law. Dude from Pennsylvania takes a snake the whole way up to Nerd for him to perform veterinarian type procedures on it. And what did we show? According to the laws, right here, number 5, the owner of an animal or the owner's regular employee caring for and treating the animal belonging to such owner, except when the ownership of the animal was transferred for purpose of circumventing this chapter. So right there is where you bring in the potential for a Lacey Act felony, because you took an animal to have an illegal procedure across state lines, got an illegal procedure, then took it back across state lines. That is a significant potential for a Lacey Act violation and a felony.
And this is the kind of thing where, like, I just filmed it to have it, and Donnie decided we're just going to publish it. If the animal dies or not, you know, whatever, but kind of like a learning experience. So there was a good chance.
just thought we'd document it to have it. If the animal dies or whatever, just a learning experience. An illegal medical procedure. If it dies, whatever, learning experience. And people wonder why we keep losing left and right.
That I'd say that animal's going to die. I really was kind of like not in a comfortable place because it had this growth in the mouth and it was growing really, really fast. It had a big infection going on. It was gurgling. So we had like a bit of a respiratory in there, which is very common. You can have one bacterial challenge and with an antibiotic. And I decided I was going to tie off this tumor because otherwise I was going to do an operation on that, and I decided I'm going to try to tie it off. So once I kind of got the infection under control and I felt like the immune response was occurring, so just when I give them antibiotics does not mean that there's an immune response. So I need to use the immune system in conjunction with an antibiotic that has an effect on whatever that bacteria that's causing huge problems and challenges for that animal. So I was lucky enough, I used gentamicin, which is an immunoglide, very broad spectrum. It's an older type antibiotic that's not used as so much nowadays, so there's a good likelihood that it has a very broad spectrum of gram-negative bacterial
And right there is what the veterinarian was talking about, using gentamicin to treat something like that that's going to blow out the kidneys. And in the video, he openly admits that they don't use it anymore. And the reason but he doesn't tell you the reason they don't use it anymore is because there's a good chance that the antibiotic is actually going to kill that snake.
Response. So I did that, tied off this tumor. Within a couple days, the tumor started shrinking down. And when I say a tumor, this could be almost like a granuloma. This could be a salivary type granuloma. It was incredibly vasculated. I think this has something to do with the salivary glands. So what we did is when the animal was first suffering problems, its lower mandible.
So he openly admits he has no clue what that is. He thinks it's actually a piece of the snake's body, but he's going to tie it off so it dies and falls off. No biopsy, nothing.
Yeah, I would say, I know. I would say it's awful. Carp tissue. Yeah, we're in drawing flaws. The kind of thing my friend thought it was maybe getting better, and it doesn't. It's interesting. I'm not getting material out.
Yeah, it's just
So I go through that. It's coming out another hole. So this is dilute chlorhexidine. There it goes, comes out of that hole. What I'm not getting is material. This is, I'm not even sure this isn't like a tumor.
expect at least a little bit of something.
Okay, so as you can see, he doesn't even know what this is, and he's feeling it full of fluid. Could you imagine?
So I'm going to.
And there's nothing for pain management here. It's just being filled with full of fluid.
The next round I'm going to do is I'm going to use.
All right, so the next thing we're going to show real quick is the Viper video. Just cuts into it, and I understand that that's something that needs done, but should it have been done without any kind of anesthetic? Should it have been done without gloves? Should it have been done with a beaver blade, because that's what that is. You probably should have used a much finer tip blade, and you'll see in the video where he actually sticks the hemostats into the open wound, and to try to get it, instead of making a little bit of a slight cut to have more room, He's actually opening up the wound with the hemostats and stretching it, so it's pretty bad.
All right, so that's what we're gonna do.
Yep. Oh, yeah, yep. And I'm not crushing them.
There you go, yeah. But so we get these subcutaneous worms, and what they'll do. This one's really tricky. Okay, there we go. A lot of times, what happens is the animal will ingest something like, and sometimes you get these. They'll be like the subcutaneous. The overall condition of this animal is pretty good. So when I look inside the mouth, I get very, very light pink gums, no hemorrhaging, eyes are not sunk in the head. You can check. Hydrated, she's been soaking for days. So I feel pretty confident as far as her health at the moment for to tolerate this process. So now, let's see, this is just a lot of stress for her. And there we are. Can you see it? Okay.
And that's the part where he shows the multiple incisions. Didn't suture them up. You could at least put some Dermabond on them and it would have came off in a shed. It would at least sterilize the wound and closed it at the same time. But this could potentially fall. This is another person's, I don't know if it's that dude's animal or not, it might be, but this is another, if that is his animal, this is then again a 100% illegal procedure that borders on animal cruelty for the lack of anesthetic use, and it also might hit on the mutilation part of the current laws in that state. This is not good. This is not what you put on the internet to make money off of if you don't want to do massive amounts of damage to the reptile industry. This is not responsible behavior. Did that worm need taken out? Yes. Did it need taken out like that? Probably not. Did it need taken out and did you need to videotape the whole process? Absolutely not, because that does that will do massive amount of damage. And since I made that post on a couple different groups about this, I've already been hit up. People have already turned him in to the veterinary board in that state. They've already done it. There's already people trying to get him in trouble for this. I got sent 20 pictures or so of dead and decaying animals in tubs and nerds. There's a picture coming of the non-disclosure clause. He's making employees sign so he can sue them if they try to tell people what's going on there. This needs dealt with soon. And this clickbait YouTube stuff is going to look what Tiger King did. Look how much damage Tiger King did to the big cats. You think we're not going to have the same thing happen to us because of this shit? 100%. It's coming. And it's coming because of this shit.
And that's the body trying to encapsulate a potential foreign body and an outside pathogen. This has actually grown at an alarming rate. So, it's a sac that's this little pouch, but you see there's really not a lot going on in there. So what we would do here foreign body in it, so when a rat bites into the snake, closes up, okay? Right, so that, that's that one, I think. Yeah, very clean, very, very clean. We would hope.
That video is actually hard to watch. I don't even want to show much of it. I don't know if you've ever had any kind of wound that's had to have been flushed out. It sucks and it hurts, and I didn't see any kind of anything for pain given to that snake. You know, I had a retic tear apart my thumb, and I had to, because it was an animal bite, I had to put stitches, like put about a third of the amount of stitches in it, and I actually had my mom do it. She actually knows how to operate and do stuff because she's worked in an operating room for like 20 or 30 years, so she actually knows how to do the stuff. She's just not a self-proclaimed medical expert. And one of the things we had to do to keep the infection out was this shit called like iodine wick. What it does is it's like this cloth wick, and you cut it, you pack wounds with it. And that was hands down the most painful thing about the whole process, because I had to have my thumb with these few stitches here and there, and then they were an open wound in between to make sure there was no infection. And every day I'd have to rip this gauze out, and then I'd have to pack it back in. I don't know if you've ever had to pack a wound, even a little one on your thumb, with a cotton type material or anything. It really hurts. Like, it is insanely painful, and you would not think it is. So the idea that this snake wasn't in a ridiculous amount of pain if it wasn't given anything is absurd. And I don't understand how the whole reptile industry is seeing this stuff, and only a handful of people are saying this needs to stop. All right, that again is going to fall into, most likely, the animal cruelty category for the laws in that state. Okay, I'm not going to show anymore because it's just absurd and ridiculous. We know for sure that this behavior, in at least some of these videos, are illegal by a technicality of who the owner of the animal is. We know for sure that they aren't licensed veterinarians. We know for sure the animals are in pain. We know for sure that it's absurd to do those kinds of operations without any kind of pain management and post them on the internet to make money off of them. We know 100% that the animal rights people view us as committing animal cruelty just by owning the snakes or the animals. And we know for 100% certainty that if they get a hold of these videos, they will use them against us, and they'll say, look what these reptile people are doing. They don't even care enough to take these animals to the vet. They don't care enough to inject them with any kind of pain management. They don't care enough to get the right kind of antibiotics to not blow out their kidneys. They don't care enough to suture up a wound after they rip a giant parasite out of the side of a viper. And it's amazing that Kevin's main criticism of me has been I'm a threat to the industry, because I think USARK is going about fighting for our rights in a destructive way. I'm a threat to the industry, but posting this shit for the world to see on the internet isn't. And one of the main points I think was the veterinarian said about unleashing copycats on the world. And I think that's a conversation that needs had, because how many people are going to mutilate the shit out of their snakes. Kevin didn't do a bad job on a lot of that stuff. Still shouldn't have done most of it. Still shouldn't have made videos of it. Still shouldn't have made a profit from it. Still shouldn't have had people break laws by driving snakes across state lines to have illegal procedures done. But if we put all of that aside and we take into consideration the amount of suffering that's going to occur because of these videos, because of these people that think, well, I watched it on the internet, so now I know how to do it. I watch a lot of things on YouTube. When I needed to change the blade on my one saw, what the hell, on my miter saw, my DeWalt miter saw, it's like I couldn't figure out how to do it. There was like some pin or something I had to do. So I got on YouTube and I looked it up and it was right there. But this is not something that simple. And and the things they're doing, these animals are going to get fucked up. The people that copy this is a much bigger issue overall, because the amount of animals that are going to be put through all kinds of shit. And a lot of people copying this, they ain't even going to have a professional scalpel. They're going to have a kitchen knife. They're going to have an X-Acto knife, which X-Acto knife would have probably been better in the case of that parasite, could have made a finer cut. People that get an egg-bound animal. I saw a nerd video where they were just pushing stuff out of these retics that, they'd got these major infections and all this stuff was coming out of them. This stuff happens, but you don't need to play, Island of Dr. Moreau on your fucking snakes. And you can't pretend like you're against animal cruelty when you're doing medical procedures without anesthetic. You can't bitch about those reptile channels that shows reptiles eating other animals and turn around and say, well, it's not animal cruelty when I slice into the side of an animal and rip something out of it. So the interesting thing about this was I kind of do clickbait shit on Facebook to get people riled up. So I put up that post that, about this stuff and calling people dick riders and stuff to get the attention. And people said I was just wanted negative attention. They're absolutely right. It was negative attention. This needs to be viewed negatively. So I put up a post that would immediately suggest negativity, and that's what it is. So the interesting thing about this was I put it in a ball python group, I put it in a boa group, I put it in a lot of retic groups, I put it in emerald tree boa groups, monitor groups, and I saw a pattern. All the people in the other groups agreed that Nerd needed to stop doing this, with the exception of the retic keepers, which unfortunately retic keepers and retics have kind of turned into like this white trash loser snake that jerk-offs with no brain are into. And it's really unfortunate, because across the board in the other groups, everybody was said this is irresponsible and Nerd shouldn't be doing that, except retic people. So what does that say about all us retic keepers? That a good portion of them are willing to deny reality and back Nerd on something like this, and at the same time say but I'm the bad guy here. I'm not trying to be the good guy or the bad guy. I'm trying to be the person that is going to bring enough negative attention to this issue that Nerd has to actually respond to it. So if they don't respond, every single time they put out a clickbait bullshit operation on a video, I'm going to give it a massive amount of negative attention. You know, I have people sending me negative information on Nerd. I'm not going to release it. I mean, I don't know. I did find it interesting that Kevin makes his employees sign a NDA. But I'd love to get a picture of one of those, because that will go on the internet. But yeah, I'm just hoping that enough people will put enough pressure on Nerd to stop this. I hope enough people would put enough pressure on Jay to quit doing what he's doing. But I don't think they're going to. You know, Kevin, this situation with Nerd might, because this is 100% in the realm of criminal activity. So there might be legal consequences for this. And YouTube will quickly want to cut ties if they think they're going to get drug into a lawsuit for promoting animal cruelty. So, you know, this could be a situation where Nerd actually is deplatformed off of YouTube so YouTube can save face, because YouTube doesn't give a fuck. They don't care. They just want money. They just want to sell ad time. But if it's going to make them look bad, and the animal rights groups are going to jump down their throat, well, then what they'll do is they'll deplatform Nerd. So, yeah, if you don't think it's a good idea for reptile keepers to perform illegal surgeries on reptiles for monetary gain on YouTube, you might want to send a message or an email or something to Nerd to let them know, because this is going to hurt all of us 100% for sure.